If you want to follow along, you can go to my Emotional Alchemy tab of my website and download the Emotional Alchemy Guide, where we have the Feel to Release chart. I have to credit Jackie Sabrin, who is a life coach that I worked with a long time ago, who introduced me to this Feel to Release chart. Probably one of the first encounters I had outside of therapy that indicated that feeling your emotions was necessary and could result in healing. So the first emotion we're going to talk about is anger. Anger is a really good one because right now we have Saturn in Aries, and there's a lot of toxic masculine traits that are being exposed in the populace right now in leadership. Aries is leadership, and when Saturn is in Aries, we see debilitated leadership. That's because Saturn is debilitated in Aries. It means that that planet of responsibility for others, responsibility for all, the common person, is debilitated. So there are folks that are in their ego right now exhibiting anger in the world stage and making decisions without, in a toxic masculine way. And Aries is the masculine. So we need to learn how to handle our anger. And one of the benefits of actually feeling your anger is that through feeling your anger, you can understand that you need to shore up your boundaries. So the healing benefit of anger is boundary setting. Now, if you feel the anger and you don't set appropriate boundaries, you could be left with an emotional block, which would feel like you're being violated by others, usually. And then if that occurs, the toxic result of not feeling your anger and not expressing what you need to in terms of boundaries is that you could start blaming other people. And I see a lot of that right now. I mean, it's funny because this is really about separating out what is your own ego and what requires you to set a boundary. And how do you do that? Anger can be quite reactive in its unprocessed form. So what does it mean? Does it mean that we're going to just start expressing our anger willy-nilly and like quickly? I don't recommend that. I recommend that you process your anger. That means you allow yourself to feel the anger instead of externalizing it on other people or reacting with it. So there's a difference there. So if you would allow yourself to feel the anger and speak to that anger, where is this coming from? Is there some sort of boundary that I haven't set that I'm allowing people to violate, which is causing me to be angry? Or sometimes anger actually hides other emotions. It's a special one in that way. Because if we don't feel like, if we feel like we're out of control, or if we feel like we don't have security, all of these themes are actually Aries themes with Saturn and Aries. This is important right now. And if you feel like you're out of control, then you tend to react in anger. And that lack of security it's kind of a root chakra issue. It's like are my needs being met issue. And if you do lack security, you might be reacting in anger, but truly you might be reacting from fear, which we'll go over later. But so if you're reacting in that way, anger is one of those that you want to see if there's like an underlying emotion and deal with that emotion, because usually if you deal with that emotion underneath, the anger will subside, or actually won't even need to express itself, because you will be able to communicate better and not be as reactive. So sometimes it's not a boundary issue. If we walk around life just like creating boundaries for other people to compensate for our fear or our anxiety, then we're just trying to control the outside world instead of changing ourselves. And it's far easier to work on yourself and see improvements in your life than to try to externalize that and control other people. Okay. And I've cleared and connected to my guide, Kendra. She's a Lumerian, and she assists me with emotional processing, shadow work, and I am connecting with her to see if she wants to share anything about anger. So Kendra also wanted to say that when you have low strength, it is better to take care of your physical needs especially when you're not feeling successful at what you're doing. It is better to rest, regroup, tune in, meditate, that kind of thing, realign, rest. And I asked her why she is saying this in the context of anger, and she's saying it's because right now with Saturn being in Aries, Aries typically is quite invigorating. Aries season is invigorating too. We just went through Aries season. But when Saturn's there, you can actually get quite exhausted. You might actually be feeling exhausted from the amount of anger you feel at the institutions that have failed us, the corruption within our systems, the abuse of innocence. It's exhausting. That's what Saturn feels like there, because Saturn represents kind of drains on our system and things that need to be released and eliminated and excreted, right? It's parasites, it's metal toxicity, it's like dirty things, like things that are contaminated, like getting contaminations out of your system. And when we see leadership throughout the world, especially the Western world, but other places, acting in toxic fashions over and over again without regard for the populace, it's exhausting. There's a buildup of anger. There might even be a buildup of anger in your life for personal circumstances where you're seeing people violate others without justice. It's exhausting. And Kendra says it's a rite of passage. So she wants you to take breaks, to care for yourself. If you're feeling overwhelmed or just exhausted from the amount of anger you have at different situations, it's natural right now. And Saturn is going to be in Aries for, around 3 years or so. So it's good to kind of learn coping mechanisms for this energy, since it's going to be here for a long time. Kendra is reminding us that we need to open ourselves up to creativity and co-creation, but we're going to need to learn new skills on how to collaborate with others, how to co-create with others. I think that's really important. It's almost like you're renegotiating those relationships to evaluate whether you need new boundaries or need to approach relationships with a higher level of skill. Another aspect of Saturn and Aries is that when you act out of the good of all, it's a higher vibrational embodiment of Saturn and Aries, right? If you take leadership due to responsibility, this is about realigning yourself. If you act out of a higher alignment, and that might mean that you do create boundaries out of a higher alignment and not reactive anger episodes. In fact, this is a really good energy for you to cool off your anger, take that time. Saturn is a slow moving planet, so it's okay to act slowly, to deliberate, to realign before you make decisions at this time. That would be very helpful. Indra also says that this is the end of a cycle. We will be experiencing delays and frustrations. And that means we have to act more strategically. That higher alignment that I was talking about. And particularly to be patient. So Saturn is known as, a geriatric or old planet, right? And so it's like, it's better to calm yourself down, act strategically, and to show patience with others. But ultimately, if you need to, Saturn does allow you to release or remove yourself out of situations that are not serving your highest good. So depending on where your Mars is located in your birth chart, you're going to have a different expression of anger than another person. And so by looking at the astrology, you can gain perspective and self-compassion regarding your Mars position. Now, Mars doesn't just represent anger, it represents your energy. So you can imagine that if you have a lot of repressed anger, that it's going to zap your energy. Someone who has a healthy relationship with their anger is a person who's able to fully feel secure to start building things, to start mobilizing, to start taking action in their life, because that's what Mars is really about. It's about taking action, being decisive, and initiating things. It's really hard to initiate things when you're feeling violated or you're blaming others, right? So that's why it's important to process your anger and to channel it into energy. So if your Mars is in Aries, you're going to be a person who likes to initiate a lot of things. Right now, if you're going through the transit where Saturn is in Aries, you're probably going to be feeling like you want to act differently than you've ever acted in your life. You want to be more aligned. You're probably searching not simply to react, but to be more thoughtful, because Saturn is not going to let you just start new projects without being in full alignment. So if you happen to have Mars in Aries, you could also, on the flip side, be subject to more rash or blunt speaking. And so you, in particular, could be impatient with others. And this is a time where you have to work on processing that anger in particular, and becoming more aligned with your actions. Now, if you have Mars in Taurus, like I do, you're going to be more deliberate about your anger, which means you're not going to get angered right away. There is more of a potential for you to be patient and plan things. On the anger front, you tend to be a person who likes control, and you only become angry when someone has violated your values in particular, because this placement in Taurus is about values. And so you tend to essentially hold back on your anger. You would tend to suppress your anger more, but then in the end, you might pop off at people if they push you past your threshold, let's just say. And the best thing about Mars in Taurus is the way in which you are deliberate about the things you do. You are wise about where you spend your energy. You're dignified. You know, Mars is masculine, but Taurus is a feminine sign. And Taurus tends to just be more strategic in this position. Mars actually is responsible for a lot of strategy, but particularly when it's in the wise about the way you invest in properties or use your assets, things like that. Now, if you have Mars in Gemini, so Mars in Gemini, Geminis, you know, they're the twins. So sometimes Gemini can act one way and then act a total different way. And when you become angry, people will say, wow, they turned into a different person, a totally different person. So I think Mars is not quite as comfortable in the Mercury ruled Gemini sign. And so because of that, Mars likes to take action, and Gemini likes to think through all the variety of possibilities. And so there tends to be a lot of anxiety, more so than anger for Geminis. Geminis can get angry, but it's more so this feeling of anxiety or regarding being overwhelmed by options, not wanting to make decisions right away. This is a dual sign, so it's always weighing and measuring the options before you take action. And that can leave you with like sort of a low grade anxiety when you want to be acting on something and you just can't. So on the good side, Geminis are really, Mars and Gemini are really good at taking actions with their hands or things that require skills. So that's a good thing. Now, Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer is actually debilitated. And what does that mean? That means that people with this placement, they have their masculine action, right, in a very feminine motherly sign. And so it inverts the energy. And so you can be quite dramatic about emotional things, family things. The things you might get angry about have more to do with your mother, because Cancer is the mother, or those who are closest to you will see your anger. And this just represents a lot of some emotional barriers, in that you have to navigate emotional barriers in your life, and you would do better not using your energy towards sometimes taking physical action, but making sure that you're emotionally aligned. That's where the inversion is with this position. And so folks with this position need to spend more time healing their emotional state. Okay. So Mars in fiery Leo. Mars in fiery Leo. My goodness. So there is a bit of ego in this position sometimes, where you want to be a leader, you want to use your energy towards self-expression, towards building your kingdom, taking action with this regard. It's a very masculine position. But Mars is actually comfortable in Leo. And people with this position do get a lot more done. Now, can they run over other people? Sure. And that's the balancing act. You would definitely want to work on incorporating what other people want or other groups want, and not just acting single-handedly all the time. But it's a great position of leadership. And it could be you could serve as a great defender or protector of others in this, because this is a protective energy. Okay, Mars in Virgo. So Virgo is also ruled by Mercury, so Mars is not entirely comfortable in Virgo. However, Virgo is a very organized sign. It's an earth-based sign. It is health oriented. So when you have this position, Virgo's the virgin, it's a feminine type expression, and Mars is a masculine. So there's dissonance there, right? But it just means that when you express your boundaries, right, it's done so with regard to the physical world, almost creating like physical boundaries or creating organizational boundaries is the way that you're going to be able to manage stuff. This is not a bad position for being able to manage situations well, because people with Virgo placements tend to be able to manage even like conflict well in certain cases. And Virgo is altruistic. So there's also this feeling that you would if you channel your energy towards altruism and healing type things, this Mars can actually blossom into, hopefully not being critical of others. This can be a position where you're overly critical of others. But if you're able to heal that and bring this more towards putting the energy towards healing, love, compassion, and that kind of thing, then you can really help others and yourself to create daily routines and work that is is healing and beneficial and altruistic. It is a position where you will tend to do a lot of work, though, and a lot of acts of service. Okay. Mars in Libra. So Libras are typically focused on other people because they're balancing between themselves and others, right? So this is antithetical because when your Mars, your energy is placed on other people, it tends to manifest in codependency. So these people, you may find yourself getting angriest within relationships. And whenever you're doing that, you could even fall into blame. So the best thing to do if you have Mars in Libra is to think about the other person when you express your boundaries. And also think about what you really need and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to put your energy. Think about ways of creating justice, balancing the scales, creating balance. If you put your energy towards balance, justice, harmony in your life, then you're going to be less agitated, less likely to blame your partners. Okay, so Mars in Scorpio. Mars in Scorpio is a position where you want to put your energy towards change, emotional change. You want to be able to forge those more critical relationships, and this gives you the energy to do that. Now, sometimes in Scorpio, if people or yourself are not quite as, let's just say, alchemized or evolved emotionally, you may tend to see more emotional obstacles and you may tend to encounter more toxicity in this position. However, due to encountering toxicity in these positions, you become extraordinarily strategic. And it's not the kind of Mars energy that's masculine. It's actually a feminine or more covert way of dealing with obstacles and your anger, right? And so in this position, you just have to watch out for not manipulating others because you tend to be so strategic and behind the scenes, and more focus on transforming and putting your energy towards transforming to a higher version of the relationships you want to have, of the business partnerships you want to have, of the closeness you're looking for. In this position, you're going to be looking for a lot of closeness within your relationships, which is amazing. It's just navigating that because not everybody is capable of being healthy to that extent. Okay. Mars in Sagittarius. Mars in Sagittarius. Wow. Okay. Here, you're very targeted. You know what you want long term. You're looking towards your long term goals. You want to travel, perhaps. You want to go visit other cultures, be worldly, think about philosophy. You're putting a lot of effort into this. Now, the things that make you angry are when people are short sighted, where they don't understand the level and layers of philosophy and just they're not as worldly as you are. You can tend to be really strict and dogmatic about the way you think, and maybe you're not even giving people the room to have their own perspective. So in this sense, It's about working with yourself and you're processing your own anger at people who maybe don't understand. I can think these people tend to be political or just have strong viewpoints. And it's just important to make sure that you are solid within yourself, that you're not trying to control other people's beliefs, and that you leave room for others to grow and go on their own journey while you're doing this work. You are going to be fiery because this is a fire sign, but it's best to, especially right now, it's best to think long term about, what you're willing to get in a discussion about with people and how you'll manage those discussions. Because if you go really hard right now, it's possible that you're going to feed into division. Okay, Capricorn, Mars and Capricorn. So Mars and Capricorn is a situation where when you act, you're doing it for the good of all, right? Capricorn can be business oriented people. Mars here can really, you're the one that likes to go to the top of the mountain. You're the one that has the stamina. It's tenacity, right? This shows a lot of grit. Because Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, you're already not that reactive. You're a little bit more detached in this position with this kind of Mars. So you're not going to be as susceptible to these anger outbursts unless you are overworked. Capricorns can get easily overworked. And so it's just about taking care of yourself in this position. There's a lot that can get done in this position because Capricorn does initiate things and initiates projects and can actually get a lot of work done. So, and working with others. So you actually have the potential to, if you align to higher calling, align to better work, you can actually get ahead in life, even at this time where Saturn is debilitated in Aries. Okay. Aquarius, Mars and Aquarius. So Mars and Aquarius, Aquarians tend to be, Mars and Aquarius people are folks that want to put their energy towards the earth, ecology, technology. They want to put their energy into things that are egalitarian, meaning they're equal for everybody, and creating communities that are equal. And so if you have this position, you're probably pretty ruffled by the toxic wars that are going on that seem antithetical to your mission and what you're trying to do with this Mars, which is to really usher in the age of Aquarius and to take action with this regard. But don't be discouraged. This is a good time for you, although frustrating. This is a great time for change. Pluto's in your sign, and it is the burgeoning of the age of Aquarius. So we're going to see you really start to mobilize and take action and evolve and embrace new technologies and, champion the quirkiness, the weirdness, say the weird things that other people won't say, and allow for people to be individuals, to be sovereign. You're going to be really championing sovereignty in this position. You could get super annoyed with leadership, and that will motivate you to join groups and to kind of fight back. This is exciting, actually. And lastly, Pisces. So Mars in Pisces is an interesting position. It just means that when you align your energy, you're doing so in a subconscious way or in a emotional watery way. Pisces is watery. And so you tend to do things, and you may not even, if you need to work on anger issues here, you may not even be aware of the subconscious roots of your anger. And I would say that now is the time, if you have not discovered this, it's to speak to your anger. I have a meditation on emotional awareness meditation, and you are the group that needs to most speak to your anger. Also, the Mars and Cancer group needs to speak to their anger for sure. and and that's going to allow you to align yourself with the big picture, put your energy on the things you most want in life, and to kind of release the drama, because there tends to be a lot of drama in Pisces sometimes. There's also a lot of secrets, a lot of I want to say hidden things that you might be angry about that you haven't discovered. And with all the transformation in Pisces, I'm guessing you're at a point where you have recognized these issues. And so another thing that you can do is putting your energy into, whimsy and stories and creativity and nature is a way for you to handle anger issues if you are having any anger issues. You tend to get angry over codependent patterns and people not acting right, that you feel that you have this responsibility for others. And the best thing you can do in this position is let go and let God with your anger. Okay, guys, that's it. That's a lot about anger. Hopefully, this is helpful, especially in light of the current astrological positions. And I hope you process your anger and transform it into action.